They say it does nothing compared to what movement does for the body, period. Nothing registers like movement. And so fascia just widens the lens and it lets more light into what we can see and how things are related.
Welcome back to part 2 of this fascinating, or should I say fascinating, conversation with Anna Rahe. Today we're shifting into something that I think will completely change the way you understand your body. We explore how trauma is not just something we carry in the mind, but something that is physically stored in the body, and why the way we move every single day can either support our journey or keep us stuck in the same patterns, or even make us feel worse. Because this is the piece that so many people are missing. We're talking about fascia, how trauma can actually be stored in the body, and what can bring it out, and how movement can be one of the most powerful tools we have for bringing that to the surface. But it also can be one of the most destructive tools.
Hi, I'm Liz Albanis, and welcome to Season 2 of Yoga for Trauma, the Inner Fire of Yoga, where we explore how yoga can help release trauma, calm the mind, and reconnect you with your body. Before you start listening, this episode includes a discussion on trauma and may touch on experiences that could be distressing for some listeners, including but not limited to survivors of sexual abuse, natural disasters, or other distressing events. If you find yourself feeling triggered during this episode, please treat yourself with care and compassion for where you are in this moment. If you're struggling, please see a licensed healthcare professional, or if in Australia, call Lifeline on 13114.
The views and opinions expressed by guests on this podcast are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of the host, Liz Albanis. The content shared in these conversations is intended for informational and educational purposes only, and it's not suitable for listeners under the age of 18. Please use discretion and consult a qualified professional before making changes to your health or wellness routines.
If you haven't listened to the first part, I really encourage you to go back to that episode and listen to that first. This will make more sense than if you do that. Here's a little snippet of the first part of the conversation, though.
If you can use your own pain and your own suffering to create change, then it becomes a value, not a liability. I also learned that my pain became the kind of breadcrumbs that I would follow towards goodness. Movement is the bare element that actually metabolizes all of our pain. And if you're, struggling with soul sickness, there is movement, spiritual movement that you can do to create healing. That's the whole point. And so movement then becomes something that's way more profound than just fitness or physical therapy, or it becomes this really profound way of dealing with life's loads, the struggle of life, and how we're going to engage it, and whether it becomes a trauma or whether it becomes our transformation.
In part 1, I asked a question that really opened the door into what we're getting into today. Here is what I asked.
And you've studied yoga and Pilates, and among other things, among many things.
Yeah.
But what fascinates me as well is that a lot of the things you were taught in your yoga and Pilates training, because I'm training Pilates too,
yeah,
contradicted what you found with your fascia research. And
100%.
Yeah, and I know one of the things from my research into some other conversations you've had was the spine. We don't think of the spine and the lungs enough, but what you were taught in Pilates was closing the rib cage in.
Dance teaches it, Pilates teaches it. It's funny that your own share preceded one of the most dysfunctional practices that we have for fascia.
Yep.
It's the spasm of the diaphragm.
Yep.
And the rib cage.
Yep.
And the sternum. Okay. You have to understand a couple things. Number one, how physiology works, which is that the adrenal glands are placed right at the bra line. It's the equal distance between the hands and the feet on the human body. The adrenal glands sit right next to the kidneys, and they are placed at that equal distance so that when stress and trauma happen, the adrenal glands immediately secrete, and that chemical process I was telling you about moves evenly into both hemispheres of the body. In the olden days, that would secrete and the legs would start pumping and the muscles of the arms would start moving and you would try to run, right? That lion, that danger, it was a physical reality.
To get away
When
from the danger.
That's right, get away from the danger. But when it's a psychological danger, the same physiological thing happens, right? The same chemical process is happening. And so what's really interesting is that the physiology creates the physical. Maybe think about it this way. The chemistry set of the adrenaline and the transmitters and stuff secreting contracts the tissue in the same pattern that we're working our muscles out in, that our biomechanics are trying to do, right? So if you need to run, your diaphragm shuts down, no blood flow really goes, your lungs pick up and contract, and you're trying to pump the blood, and your spine shorts into a primal contraction, like a fetal position for
Which
protection.
I felt too, yes.
Right?
Yep.
So if you take that physiology and you apply it to how we mechanically load in our biomechanics, you are creating the same load pattern that stress chemicals are putting into your tissues.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Say that again. A crunch when you push your ribs down, or you're
Ribs
trying
to
to
hips
hold,
was the cue I was taught. Yeah.
right? Ribs to hips. That
Yeah.
is putting you into a physiological stress state.
That is
Your
fascinating.
muscles start to tighten. The other problem is that all of our mechanical disciplines, whether you're training for sport or you're doing yoga, overemphasize muscular activity. The muscles are your getaway car. They are what pump so much effort and stress into you so that you can get away.
The
But if
sympathetic nervous system goes.
they are sympathetic nervous system. The fascia is endorphin based.
Yep.
It's the opposite. And so we should be living 90% of our time moving with fascial mechanics rather than muscle mechanics. And yet all of the ways, when I say biomechanics, you're learning yoga by poses, but you're really initiating biomechanical movements by a shape, by a pose. And that is not the way to learn yoga. That's not the way to learn Pilates. You have to learn, how does the body move? And then you apply that science of movement to the positions of yoga. It's the reverse, right? But that's because yoga was never meant to be a fitness routine.
No, never.
Yoga
And it
was
shouldn't.
supposed to be
It still shouldn't be.
it shouldn't be. It was supposed to be a spiritual discipline.
For
And
some
if
of
you
us,
go
it still is.
to most of us, I guess I was also jaded by just, and every discipline is different. Yoga is very flavored. I'm making generalized statements because of that, but it doesn't matter. Even when I went into more of the spiritualized, like, I studied with my friend Satsiri, and she did Kundalini, and it's not even a lot of like biomechanics. It's like just tons of like phonetic repetition, right? And it's for a different point, but ironically, they're still stimulating this
it
kind
can
of
be very
like,
sympathetic activating.
very
Yeah.
sympathetic.
Especially
So
with the belly pumping and
that's right.
and very
So
tantric. Yeah.
the ideal is that I think that fascia broadens our perspective of, if we focus on fascia first, everything gets healthier. Every discipline we take becomes more aligned to what is truly vital for our bodies, what makes us vital. So if I focus on fascia for organ motility, my digestive system will behave better. My microbiome will be improved.
Yeah.
If I focus on fascia for my workouts rather than the muscles, my joint health will be enhanced. And the same thing is for mental problems, right?
Nervous
Like brain
system
injury.
regulation.
If you focus on fascia first to treat brain injury, not just mental health, but brain injury, which is a different thing, but they end up colliding because you can't have mental health on a brain that's injured, right?
Yeah.
So you fascia focus first, and it's unbelievable. I just had a girl from Queensland,
Oh,
and she
yeah.
flew in to see me, and she has had a decade of chronic migraines to the point where it was so extreme that she thought about ending her life.
Oh, my
She's gone to
God. That's
every
terrible.
major place, and she does her Botox, and she was just starting to lose hope. And it was so interesting that after, I think we did 10 sessions in a 2 to 3 week, because we couldn't do much to flare it up. Like, it was this really interesting. Anyway, the approach was very unique for her conditions, but it was all fascia focused. And it was shocking. She still has not had electrical storms like she has had since going back. And what's so interesting is all the regular triggers, like, she didn't change the triggers, life triggers us. But
Yes.
how the fascial responds in the brain and interfaces with the nervous system is really profound. And so that's why I just love fascias, that it changes the entire worldview for a human, from trauma to just physical health,
Oh,
right? Like, to
absolutely.
emotional health.
Absolutely. But I think so it was mainly with the yoga and Pilates was the fact we were shutting down that area.
Yes.
But we can
Look,
still practice yoga in a way that doesn't, like a
of
somatic
course.
practice. Yeah.
Of,
Like do
well, and
it.
not only that, but all you have to do is honor what is. So one of the things, let me say this for the listener to make it really clear.
Mm,
Your body is tubes, not sticks.
yes, I've heard you
Fascia
say
is
that.
a tube, not stick. And when you start crunching or tourniqueting tubes that are supposed to flow with blood, with digestive juices, with lymph, with muscular energy that's moving through the fibers of fascia, by doing core mechanics the way we're taught, by trying to align things and keep things very rigid in our postures and in our movement, we're basically not honoring the fluid nature of our bodies. And so
Mm,
I would say that if someone loves the yoga is there. I also like to use this for people. It's like, if you learn how to play your body the way you would an instrument, and you
mm,
learn to play the instrument well, then go play Haydn, go play Chopin, go play, right? You can go play
Mozart.
yoga while I go play Pilates, because it's not the song you're playing, it's how you're treating the instrument.
That's
That's the
right.
best analogy. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
So,
people
because
just need to learn how to move their bodies correctly. And everyone would be like, well, I'm a precision and I work with a trainer who's so precise. And I'm like, that's not what I'm talking about. You have to
and I,
learn the right mechanics.
And I like to say that to practice a beginner's mind, because if you didn't have a beginner's mind, you wouldn't have started learning to think outside the square and question other
That's
things
right.
you were taught. And over the years, after nearly 14 years of teaching yoga, I've changed a lot from
Right.
learning new things. And what you're teaching me now has made me start to think, hmm, now I need to go into this more, and look
Yeah.
at my own practice and how I help others, which I'd already started to feel with the changes in my diet, all of that with my
Yeah.
adrenals, my diaphragm, the spasming I'd never felt in my diaphragm after the
So,
second fire, and the tremors I'd never had. I would shake
uh-huh.
up and down in cobra and just like this.
Uh-huh.
And because I know the shaking is releasing, I just went for it because I know that's
That's
what
my
animals
first.
do. They
Yeah.
shake it off.
Twitch. That's right.
They've done studies on people who survive natural disasters or terrorist attacks. I cannot
Yeah.
find this study, but it was mentioned in a book I was reading called Yoga for Fear.
Oh.
And unfortunately, from my recollection, the author has now passed away, but there was a study on 9/11 victims, and the ones who were able to flee and run and get away had less chance of a PTSD diagnosis and
Oh,
suffered less
interesting.
after than the ones that were trapped
That
or
makes total
couldn't
sense. That
help
kind of goes
others.
back to what I said was
Exactly.
movement movement
Mm.
metabolizes stress, whether it's physical
Exactly.
or psychological. Movement is the key. And even like, like longevity medicine is showing now that you can take any kind of biohack you want, any medicine, peptide, blah, blah, blah. And they say it does nothing compared to what movement does for the body, period. Nothing registers like movement. So I think there's something to that, like why we go into it and help people from a yoga or movement perspective is because I think there's truth there. And I like something you just said, Liz, which is the beginner's mind should be almost like a state of being for people where it's like you're always looking for like what can I do next? And asking questions is an open like opens the field, and there's always something more, and then that led you to the more that we open as people, the
Mm.
more that we can lead or we can show people, right? I love that, people, I think oftentimes teachers think they need to have what they know and what they've learned. And I'm like, you're not teaching what you know or learn. It took me a long time. I've been doing this 28 years.
Yeah, a
It
long
took me a
time.
long time to realize that I am not trying to teach people the concept. I'm trying to share with them my experience. And that is predicated. The only way I can be potent is if I have done the work first, because then
Mm.
I actually have something to share,
Yeah,
right? So, that's why you want to stay open. That's why you want to have that beginner's mind, is because then you're always going like, my journey is never complete. And therefore I have stuff to offer other people.
exactly. Yeah, I mean, and that's
What
why,
drew you into yoga? What was your like impetus to go to yoga? What drew you there?
yeah, I was like a many typical people. I was like, oh, it's the latest. It was hot yoga, it was Bikram, it was new to Canberra because Canberra being, although we're the
Uh,
capital city, we're a small city and we're usually behind the big cities like Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane.
yeah.
And Bikram was a new thing. And my friend was like, oh, you've got to come in, you'll get more flexible, you'll detox, you'll lose weight. And being a typical sexual abuse victim, I had a bad relationship with food,
Uh,
and I was smoking, and yeah, I went, and it was the hardest thing I've ever done, but I stopped smoking within 3 months. And I'm like, there's more to
wow.
this because
Amazing.
yeah, trauma can cause addictions,
Yes.
ADHD. So smoking was my thing, drinking, binge drinking, and I finally had something else, and that really kept me going. And because it's had such a profound effect on my life, I changed my career. I was a public servant and I worked for the federal government. And the funny
Oh
thing
my
is, I
God.
hear your GST name, grid flow somatic technology, and I think GST, goods and services tax, because I
That's
worked for
right.
the tax
Everybody
office.
does. That's even the Canadians. I'm like, I know that
And I have every time like, no, it's not goods and services
that's right.
tax.
That's right. You got to look at it. I
I
know.
look
Oh
out
my gosh,
there
it's
in front
so
of me, it's
funny.
like grid flow somatic technology. But so moving on, because I know time is precious and you've been
Yeah.
so generous with your time.
No, it's happy to be here.
I'm just trying to prioritize things because you're such a you're such a fascinating guest. And I'm sure
Thank
you've
you.
heard that one before.
I have
'Cause
also used that. I think that might be one of the titles in the chapter of my book. I
oh
think I call it
yes, I can't
fashion.
wait to buy your book.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm looking forward to that.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Yeah, good. It's
Yeah, it's
coming.
great.
It's coming. It's closer than it's ever been. So that's great. I'm
Oh,
I'm in
okay.
negotiations with the publisher, so it's
Well,
great.
I'm on your email list, so I'm sure I'll be one of the first to
And
find
maybe you
out.
can help me get the word out, because that's
Oh,
really what this book is
absolutely. We'll
about, is
talk
just
about
helping
it
people.
soon if that's
Great.
all
Yeah,
right.
we could do a
Yeah.
follow-up. That'd be great. That'd be great.
Yeah. So you've helped people with trauma.
Hmm.
And I know there's an interesting story about someone's foot because of being tied up.
Yeah. Incest. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm assuming because if someone's got PTSD, it can show up in different areas of the body
Yeah.
depending on the situation.
Yeah, it's
So
true.
could you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, let me think about what I would share about that. I mean, I think that comes kind of down to what I was just trying to say in the earlier part of our conversation about that fascia is deeply layered and
Mm.
deeply like I mean, fascia is the first tissue that starts in utero, right? When
Yeah.
the, three cells are starting to push and pull and move. And so we are created by this tubal pressurized thing. And so it's not like trauma gets we the Western mind especially, but less a little bit in the Eastern mind because they think in circles with mandala and stuff. But we in the Western mind think angle and line and straight and solid and if you really understand how fascia is formed, kind of like it's like almost taffy. It pulls and then it folds in and it pulls and it folds in that this information comes in like we described the whole thing, but it's layered into deep neurological patterns and it's wrapped around the nerves that remember. And so it's a very complicated thing. And so when you start thinking about body part and position, I even had a thought that I need to go back and rework some of my book because I think we can do associative things like the feet mean this and that's why. But when you look at a pattern of how someone stores their trauma, it's a multi-layered thing. It's not usually by simply saying part or parcel, meaning it happened to condense in this woman's feet. She was, do you want to tell a story? I don't know how your listeners
Oh
feel
no,
about
you'll
it.
do, no, no. There's a trigger warning, and people know they can turn it off at any time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it just this woman comes to me, she's in therapy and she's got these dinky little fairy feet and she's 6 or 5'7" or 5'8". She's like
She's
tall.
tall.
Anyway,
Yeah.
so she was doing trauma work. She was already dealing with the history of incest. And so I was just hoping to help her with her body because this her therapist had said, I know that this woman does really great work. I think it would be complimentary. So she comes in and we're just kind of moving things. And we talk about stuff, but she wasn't overt. Anyway, the whole story is that after about a couple weeks, I just kind of was working on her legs and her feet. And I said, why? She's like, I know my feet are so small. And I'm like, yeah, they're kind of tiny. She was like, oh, yeah, well, I have memories of, my dad holding my feet
Oh.
down and I think that and so I don't know we kind of think that my that could be related and I was like well let's try it, let's talk about it. And so I started working on her feet. We put it as a point of intention, and within the next, I don't know, I'd say like 6 weeks her feet grew to a normal 6 size foot. It was still small for how tall she was, but it wasn't like,
That's
I mean,
amazing.
we're talking like bound feet, right? So when you ask me to kind of talk about it, it makes me feel like I don't, number one, with fascia, you can't be diagnostic, right?
Yeah, you did
But
say that
this is what,
before.
that's
Mm.
right. It's hard because it changes the whole way we have to look at even health and medicine, really. I also do medical advocacy where I talk with doctors about conditions because fascia is this. Medicine takes this like symptom and we start to divide the body into specialties and expertise and we start like narrowing the aperture to diagnose a very specific, very, very close thing. But all of a sudden we lose the field of what could be happening elsewhere. And so what fascia did for me was I'm like, oh, my breathing was a product of my heart, which was a product of my gastrointestinal, which was a right. And so fascia just widens the lens and it lets more light in to what we can see and how things are related. So I think I would say that in the trauma sense of this story with this woman is that I didn't go in and just say, oh, your feet are small, therefore your trauma is in your feet. That's
Yes.
extremely Western ways of thinking.
Yeah.
And I think the more like honoring an intentional way to do it within the fascial framework is letting the body speak. And that speaking came out of the growth of her feet, the unbinding, which was done because we were letting other things speak, right? It was the
Mm.
last expression of freedom that came in, not the focus of let me try to open your feet to get somatic release. And this is one of the problems I'm really not,
Yeah.
I'm critical of new and more like, there's hype out there all over the place about somatic releases and look what we can do and somatic. And they're looking, it's almost like the Pentecostal movement in Christianity, where it's like, let me feel the spirit. And let me, like, it has to be so big. And I'm quaking and then I'm crying and then I'm quaking. And I'm like, that is destabilizing to the nervous system.
Yeah.
100%. But they like the feeling, it's cathartic, right? They think that it's cathartic. And
It's
the
not
real
always a good
respectful
thing.
way, yeah, and it's not always good. They're getting a release, but it doesn't follow the natural flow of what the fascia needs. For example, her feet started to unwind when we started working on the low posterior adrenal belt and the kidney relationship. And
Right.
as she started to change her rib cage, it opens up, and then her foot started talking later. But if we go in and we start to analyze and diagnose, like this is where trauma is stored, it's a it's almost like a reverse pathology where we start putting narrative in. And I remember a very clear moment in my own journey
Mm.
where I was in a healing table and I was having a somatic release. And the woman was a true healer. And she said, that's not it. And I kind of was shaken out of it. And she's like, that's not it. Whatever you're thinking, whatever you're relating to, it's not what is it. And I said, oh. That's interesting. I was milking my own story. I'm like, this is the trauma of my, I know that this is the relationship I had with my, blah, 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 blah. And then all of a sudden it was like, that's not it. True healing doesn't have cathartic, like, or like, such, it's quiet. What I want to say is it's quiet. Fascia unwinds quietly and profoundly. It is a
Yeah.
stabilizing source, not a destabilizing. It is not, it's mystical because fascia is so intelligent and so crazy to think about it, but it's kind of like another dimension, right? Fascia introduces you to a different dimension of work that is, I don't know, it's stabilizing, it's calming, it's not frenetic, it's not adrenal, right? So when we try to do trauma work that is too somatic, and
Too
I mean,
sudden.
that's right.
Yeah, we
Right.
can have panic attacks or yoga teachers who are going outside their scope, or even yoga therapists that have opened the doorways, the floodgates
Yeah.
too
And
much.
not being able to hold it.
And
So
that's
that's all I
always,
guess all I would say. Yeah.
but sorry?
No, I was just concluding that I was listening to you. I'm like, yeah, yes. And that's, I think all I would say about that is that I wish that there could be something like, oh, that means that I spent years being like, oh yeah, that means that my low back is related to my blah, blah, blah. And this is means that my blah, blah, blah comes from my blah, blah, blah. And I was like, that's not really actually how trauma is released or dealt with in fascia terms.
Yeah, because I always heard about the psoas and the lower back,
Oh,
you know,
don't
that
even get me started. The fucking psoas. Oh my gosh. And the pelvic floor, the psoas and the pelvic floor. And I'm like, yes, but
it's not the
yes.
whole picture.
Well, and look, the psoas is plays an important role in terms of its veneration with the diaphragm and the shared tissue with the adrenal flow field. What I will say, I can't address everything in a thing. I just want to
No,
always
no,
like
no,
get in
there's
there and
too
be like,
much. Yeah, I
that
know.
your adrenal glands, when they secrete, one of the points of, do you know what the thoracolumbar fascia is?
Yes.
It's these deep layers of these dense fibers of fascia that run from the rib cage down into the base of the pelvis. And a lot of structuralists think that the primary source is to give structure to the soft tissues in the middle. But I expand that view. I think that there are structural alignment things that it's related to, but I think that its primary source is to act like a gravel field for all the toxic chemicals that come down from the adrenal glands as an absorption and a directive field to take those stress hormones and get them into the legs as fast as possible so they don't stay in the torso. And because those chemicals are toxic to tissue, all
Yes.
tissue, right? Like
Mm.
organ tissue, you cannot have too much adrenaline in your organs, else there's a problem. So anyway, the whole point is that the psoas becomes a very minor anatomy piece in the actual flow field of toxic stress chemicals through the tissues. And so it will shorten because it's
Yes.
related to the fetal position,
Diaphragm
but
and the
it doesn't
fetal
play a
position, yeah.
metabolic role the same
Yes.
way that the flow field does in the back. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
that makes
So
sense.
that's
Yeah.
why I believe, and I think all of the people who I've worked with over the years would tell you that the new Psoas is going to be when I get my day in the sun. The new Psoas will be the upper rib cage and the vital organs underneath the chest. Everything up in the upper hemisphere is way more physiologically responsible for body health than anything else, than Psoas, than pelvic floor, anything.
Yeah, it's
That's
a
my
holistic approach.
concern.
You can't just say, "Oh, just release the psoas and everything else will be fixed." It's yeah, no.
Correct.
But I think
Correct.
a lot of that research on the psoas was a while ago, and
It was
there's
big
been
in the 90s first. That it was
yeah,
totally a big deal when I went through my Pilates training in 96, 7.
yeah, and there's more that's come out, which is great. Because releasing my psoas was the start for me. With
Yeah.
David Bocelli's TRE
Oh
as
yeah.
well.
That's great.
But
That's great.
I used to think it was just in the psoas, this trauma, right?
That's
And then
right.
especially after the fire, I was like, wow, I would release my temporalis all over all over there and all these tremors. I'm like, whoa. And then I'd end up, it helped me sleep
That's
because
totally right.
yeah, so it was just fascinating what happened to my body and the spasming I felt in what those areas you've been talking about. So
Yeah.
that's
That's
amazing.
100%. That is fascial.
Yeah.
100% fascial in my estimation. Um, that's what fascia's job is to disseminate, dilute, and get rid of the toxic chemicals and load in your system.
And just one question before I ask you for some tips for listeners is, do you think one of the mistakes people are making is only focusing on the myofascia? Because we've got all these layers. Do you think that's what a lot of us
Yeah,
are doing? Yeah, just
that's 100%.
myofascia. Yeah,
Everybody's into the myofascia, but that makes sense because
the
of the
gins,
history of,
DOMs.
yeah, well, and I think that fascia around the muscle, which is it's significant, but because of the relationship it has to movement,
Mm,
right?
mm.
It's a big deal, but if you're only focusing on the myofascia, you're missing the whole field,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And I think that the danger is that we are going to compartmentalize fascia the way that we have compartmentalized the body. The
like separate
psoas,
it. Yeah,
the psoas, right? That's a compartmentalized view of the psoas. It's
yeah,
like what fascia gifts us, if we will let it, is its expansion, expansion of concept, expansion of stretch, expansion of like how we're going to deal with pain. And so if we start to let fascia try to fit our current framework, we're going to do a lot of damage. I think we're not going, well, I don't, yes, you can do damage, but I would say it's not that dramatic. You will not receive the exponential benefits
the full
of working with
benefits.
fascia as a field. You have
Yes,
to work with fascia as a field,
all the
period.
layers because it's and the body as a whole because of that. Yeah, holistic approach. Yeah, with
That's
the
right. That's
fascia.
why I call it holistic body care because
Yeah,
there's not a thing that fascia doesn't touch. We can influence like actual autonomic functions by how we use somatic action in fascia. That's really profound. I will say that again for those of you who have any interest in deep science. Because of how fascia functions and where it's located, it is both controllable in a somatic sense, like a muscle. I can do something with it
mm,
on purpose, on choice. And it has autonomic responses. So you can have endocrine secretion channel function by fascial innervation. That's really profound. And that will be missed if you only go into your myofascia, if you only silo it by body part. Because truly, Liz, the way that you're saying that is that fascia wraps around and is involved in every other body system. So it is an endocrine tissue. It is a myotissue. It is a nerve tissue when it's involved in the nervous system. the way it wraps around and works with myelin, right? It has influence on every other system. And so to just focus on the myofascia is like saying, I am just going to deal with my brain injury by dealing with my gut.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, that's fine, but you're missing the nervous system. You're missing the, right? So that's what I mean. And I love that you brought that up because it's a passion I have. And I think that we're in the beginning stages, so I don't want to be too critical. Like
there's
my
so
problem
much
is
research that's come out.
and it will. Like I've been doing this for so long that I'm like, I take for granted that I'm kind of 20 steps ahead. Even I went to the Fascial Research Conference, and it was apparent to me that I'm like, I'm still talking about things that are still not talking about this research, right? It's like this really interesting thing because the people who are researching are those who are researchers. They're not the ones out doing it, right? They're studying.
They're studying it, but not doing it.
Doing it, right? So I think that it's an important thing that people understand that the most important thing is that people are starting to talk about fascia. And if people are excited about it from the myofascia because it's easy, and people who are teachers of movement, yoga teachers, Pilates teachers, weight training,
Yeah, personal trainers.
This is actually
physical
great.
therapists.
That's right.
As you call it over there.
The reason that they want to talk about it is because they are drawn to the somatic side of things. And then they can help spread the message that, fascia is king.
Oh, yeah. Well,
fascia is source. Fascia is source.
The more I find out about it, the more complex it becomes, and more that I'm like, the more fascinating it becomes, And I know that I need to focus, me personally, on more, not just the myofascia so much, going deeper.
Yeah.
So before I ask you about your book, if you would get to give someone who's practicing yoga and has belief, they know there's some trauma in there. What should they be doing now? They've obviously, what's some tips to help them out?
I would say two things. One is very practical about how you want to shape your body. Try to think about all of your poses in three-dimensional shape form, where you're going to try to keep all your tubes open. And that means letting your ribs go, even though they teach you to put your ribs to hips. Try to really keep the channels of energy open to translate.
And the nadis, yeah.
Okay.
Nadis, yeah.
And then the second thing is more about trauma, which is the position itself is a shape and a container for your trauma. And what fascia does, and what GST specifically, this is not talked about in any other discipline that I've heard anywhere.
Yep.
Is that there is movement under the movement. Meaning, think about your body like a fishbowl. In yoga, we take the fishbowl and we make it into different shapes and we hold it and we try to move the water. But fascia allows us to move the seaweed and the fish and the currents and everything by choice.
Yes.
Which means when you're in downward dog, you're never holding a pose.
You're not static. You're flowing.
Yes. Inside, you need to be pulling your tissue in very specific directions with very specific outcomes. And that is, there's magnetism in there. Like I can't teach GST here, but the idea is that if you're in your own discipline and you're with your eyes closed and you're feeling your body from the inside out, ask your body inside this shape, what other kinds of movement beside the flow of my Vinyasa, or what is it called?
Vinyasa, yeah.
Yep. Inside of those, the flow of those poses, that's not flow. I love that everybody talks about yoga flow or dance flow or karate flow. That's not the flow.
No, I'm talking about a different sort of flow. Yeah.
I'm talking about the fascial flow.
Yes.
The way that you can control how fascia is animating and distributing the pain, the restriction, the energy, the chi inside of you. And that is done as purely as me contracting a muscle. I can direct my fascial release very specifically with precision. And I want to open that up to the yogi who's interested, because that, I think, is where the real work of trauma release comes from, is not the pose itself. It's not the sequence of poses that create a flow.
Yes.
It's when you are in the tight corners and when you bind fascia in specific ways, the binding allows for the potential for the fibers themselves to unwind and begin to animate and undulate. They have their own like dexterity, and it's a very cool experience. And that is the key to unlocking your whole body, remodeling it, how it looks, how it functions, how you capture your spirit, how your brain works, everything.
Because I like to say to encourage students in their yoga to practice more somatically and focus on what they're feeling in downward dog, like moving. Oh, I'm feeling it here and moving towards that and
Perfect,
feeling where I
Liz.
need a
That's great.
release.
You are
Oh,
doing great.
yeah, feeling it rather than focusing on what it looks
Analyzing it.
like. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
starting to tune in to improve your interoception and all of that,
Perfect,
which
Liz.
trauma
Good.
damages. But
Or
one,
can make hypervigilant, just so we know.
yes, true. Yeah, that narrows that window of tolerance.
Yeah.
Dr. Dan
Yes.
Siegel. Yeah.
You've done a reading. You've done great reading.
Oh, so much to learn, but yeah, thank you.
I'm
I'm
impressed.
trying.
I'm impressed.
Oh, thank you. Not
So
as
good.
impressed as I am with your knowledge, but
No.
I think someone would say to you, though, if I don't bring my ribs to hips, aren't I going to damage my back because I'm not, they're like, if I do that,
Right.
Anna,
But
if I do that, my back's going to get damaged because I'm not protecting
holding
my
my
back.
core.
Yes.
Not holding my core. Number one, I believe in intelligent design. Here's what I would tell them.
Mm.
You have a fleshy middle. There's a reason you are designed to have a fleshy middle.
Yep.
It is supposed to be soft and subtle and supple. It is supposed to be malleable and movable. Do not lock it up with muscle contraction. Secondly, muscles should not be your source of strength. They are weaker by 10 times what fascia is.
Yep.
And fascia does not strengthen by compressing and connecting. It strengthens by lengthening, kind of like a Chinese finger toy. When you push the woven toy that's a tube together, it loosens the fibers. But when you pull your fingers apart, the tube and the fibers pull apart and it locks your fingers. And that is how fascia creates strength. So yes, I'm asking you first to open your tubes, but then you actually have to learn how to use your fascia as the primary strength provider.
Rather than the
And
muscles.
it will not be from a muscle contraction. It'll be from how fascia strengthens, which is by length. And it just takes, you have to learn it. It's a skill.
That's why you use traction with your equipment. That's what
right.
I'm really
Look
fascinated
at you,
by.
Liz.
Oh no, I can see the Pilates influence with the springs and things, and I'm like, oh, that traction. My back would really enjoy that.
Everybody needs traction more than the compression, but there's actually 3 primary actions.
Yeah, there was compression, traction, and what was the other one?
Rotation.
That's right, rotation. Well, that is amazing, Anna. I have so many more questions in my head.
We'll do this again.
I would love to do this again.
I love talking with you.
Do you know when your book is out? Is there a date?
We are hoping, I mean, they have 18 months to publish it, so that's contract.
Oh.
So we'll see. We're in the front stages, so hopefully within the year and a half.
I can't wait.
More about the actual process. So it's written, manuscript ready. I'm doing editorial editing right now, so with the editor. So it's exciting because it's taken so long for this body of work to get to a place where I think that it's pretty accessible. And it's a concept book, right? Like it took me 15 years to realize that I couldn't write an exercise book. I had so many agents that I went through that are like, well, this book doesn't have any like exercises in it. And I'm like, because you cannot teach movement, cinematic movement on the page by squares. You have to teach it through video. You have to teach how it moves in a sequence of cinematic experiences. So I gave up trying to teach, here's what you do to strengthen your glute. Here's how you're going to get your abs flat. So I'm excited about it because it's like, here's a whole new fucking world. You want to blow up your world and be happier, healthier, like more whole? then this is the idea behind it. And it's kind of a fun idea, conceptualized book.
And does it explain your story, how you did the research, how you came up with everything?
It does. There's pieces of memoir in it. It was a hard thing to layer in, right? It has total pieces of memoir. Um, yeah. I don't know that it does it like it does on podcasts. You know how you go like, well, how did you find fascia? And so it's not a sequential like, here's how I found it. It's like, here's this piece. This is my story that covers this piece of reality that, this is why.
I do
What is the
this.
word? Yeah, there's a thing of like lived experience, right? So it's kind of layered by lived experience. So people
And
will
that would
say,
have been
oh,
therapeutic in itself to write that. I think a bit of narrative
yeah,
therapy there. But that sounds really interesting. I'll definitely be buying it and spreading the
thanks.
word. It's called
Thanks.
Skin to Soul or something.
Right. That was my working title. And then the publishers wanted to change it. So the working title now is called Vital Motion. And it may change again. So I wanted to call it Skin to Soul. My second book that I'm writing, it's not out into publishing mode, but that's called The Science and Soul of Stretch, which yoga people would really like.
Oh, wow, there's another one. Great.
Yeah,
And
they're brewing. I keep working on them. So, Liz, I love being with you. You should come and take my free workshop. I only have 2 weekends left, but it's all about that book. I'm testing concept and stuff. It's on, I don't know that the times, but I've recorded it, so I'll send them to you.
yeah, I
Uh,
will definitely look into that because I'm setting up a home studio here and
are
there's some
you?
pieces of equipment there that I want to learn more about anyway. It's a shame you don't do instructor training or something.
Well, I was just going to tell you this too. Sarah, she runs a Pilates studio, yoga Pilates, up in Queensland in the Gold Coast. And I first met her because I was down there and she responded to wanting a fascia workshop. So I did a fascia workshop for her. That's how she met me. I may be going down there before the end of the year and we're going to start a teacher training. All of her teachers want to do this. So it's in the works. We're coming. And Australia is one of the first places because of this, connection. So that would
Lucky
be really,
us.
really fun. And this is what I was going to tell you. If you want the equipment, I can't ship it. It's too expensive. It would be absolutely god awful. So she hand carried all of her equipment down there, and I can bring it to you if that's something you want. I don't think you want to pay for shipping. I'm pretty sure you don't.
No, no, I didn't look into that, but I did want to talk to you about it. So
Okay.
yeah. So you've got a great YouTube channel that's got that sync
Free
exercise.
stuff. Yeah.
That's got that exercise where you pull the kitchen sink for your fascia.
Perfect. Have people start with that video and you'll put it in your links for
Yes.
the listeners and they can try that. Because it really does, it's an experience. Like I can talk ideas all the time, but once you really connect into the fascia through GST, I think, because I just did a workshop at the Fascia Congress on fascia, and I'm like, this doesn't even feel like this is fascia. I can feel that I'm moving my fascia, but it doesn't feel like what I'm talking about, which is what I'm excited about, which is that animation. So have people try it and tell me what they think because it feels so it's life-giving. It's a life infusion for your body and your mind and spirit.
Definitely is. And you've got a whole I haven't tried it out, I'll be honest yet. Be honest, I haven't yet, but it's on my to-do list for today. But now that I've been focusing on looking at videos of you and listening to interviews and learning a bit more about you, but you've got a few ways people can work with you, one-on-one,
Yes.
and they can book a discovery call for that.
Absolutely. And that comes through our website. And for people in Australia, I think maybe the easiest because of time difference. I have a couple people in Perth and that they do our online. That's a really great. We have an online studio and
Mm.
it's got so many things. The categories are endless. We have, therapies, we have like golf, training, we have somatic release and body work stuff. And so it's a really beautiful place to just explore and start your journey because it's a great community. We answer questions. It's really live and active. And so you don't feel like you're doing 80s, exercise videos at home. I'm with you. And so that's a nice option for people who are international and aren't and doing it. But if you ever want to take a midnight exercise class, I teach every day live because we love to be together in community. And so that's another way. Those are the
Well,
three ways.
funny you should say that about Australia because most of my listeners are American anyway.
Are
So,
they?
the stats
Great.
usually show that. So a lot of them, that time difference is not an issue, but it's good to know that for my fellow Aussies and other people in the
Yeah,
Southern
yeah. I
Hemisphere, they
never
have
know.
other
Isn't that
options.
fun how globalism just connects us all? I really love that, You have
Yeah,
impact on a continent you didn't even, and you're not from because you're able to share your wisdom and knowledge. That's great.
yeah, that is great. There are good things about this modern world as well. It's not
Yeah.
just all bad. So,
No,
but I
no.
will share all your links on in the show notes, of course, and any emails and
Great. Well,
promotions.
thank you.
And
Thanks. It's been so fun.
thank you for coming on the show. And it's been
Well,
fantastic to have you.
it's been a pleasure. I love spending time with you. I love that you're bringing more of this to the world. Thanks for helping me.
My pleasure. Thanks again for tuning in. If you loved the show, my guests and I would really appreciate a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. Until next time, never forget the power of yoga.